In this video tutorial, we will show you how to implement search on the data of a grid. We have added UI controls that allow the user to cycle the search results in both directions. The cell with the current result is focused and editable. We start with an empty web page where we add references to two CSS files. The files load the green theme. In the directory of the project, we have a subdirectory with themes, for the grid and for the UI. The themes with the same name use the same color scheme but are for different elements. Make sure you import both themes from the UI and grid folder and that the theme is the same. If we go to the scripts folder of our project, you will see that there is a collection of JavaScript files and one TypeScript file. We will add references to all JavaScript files. The TypeScript file is used by Visual Studio Code to provide IntelliSense support. We will refer to it in the JS Code Behind file. We will add references to two more files. One is basicgrid.js, which holds the programming logic of our application. The other is employees.js, which contains the grid data. We will look at this file in a few minutes. The last thing we'll add to this web page for now is one div element, which will hold the grid. We assign an ID to it because we will refer to it in the Code Behind file. We start editing our blank Code Behind file. We add a reference to the TypeScript file because we want to have IntelliSense support. Let's look at the employees data file. It contains a single array with JSON data. The fields in each data object are important because we will bind them to the data columns of the grid by assigning each column an ID that matches the name of an object field. Let's add some namespace mappings to the JavaScript code file. Then we initialize an empty array called columns. Now we create our first grid column with an ID index. As you see, its ID is the same as one of the fields in the data objects from the employees list. The index is an integer, and we set the data type to be integer type. Then we specify the column caption, which is the label of its header. Finally, we add the new grid column to the columns array. We create the next grid columns in the same manner as we created this one. They are of string type except the fourth one. The position of the employees is chosen among several available options. That's why the type of the grid column is lookup type. The other grid columns are of string type. All columns have an identifier that matches a field name in the employees array of objects. Let's create now the grid control. We use the reference to the div element that would represent the grid, and we create a new instance of the grid class. Then we set its theme property to green, which is the name of the two CSS files that we referenced. We also create an array model and assign it to the model property of the grid. The model property is the data property of a grid instance. The library tries to bind the available grid columns to the data that was provided. Last but not least, we should call the render method to paint the grid. Now if we refresh the empty web page that we started with, you will see the grid. It has 60 rows, which is the number of the records in the employees array. So far we have set up the grid and its data. Now we will add a row of HTML controls that will provide the search UI. We have copied 2 green arrow pictures inside the project directory. We will use it for buttons. Let's add some styling for the web page. We specify a fancy font for the text, and we style the input elements with a gray border. Elements with the buttons class will have a bottom margin. We add now an input of type search, and we create a label for it. This is the search box. We add 2 input elements of a type image, which will use the 2 green arrow images that you've seen. We also add a span. The span will hold information text with the result of the search. Initially, it is empty and not visible. Let's refresh the page. Here's the row of search controls. Of course, they do nothing now, but we will wire them straight away. We add an array called result, where we will store the search results. We also need to have a variable that will tell us which is the current search result that is selected. We get the HTML elements that correspond to the span that will render info text about the search result and the search box. Now we handle the key up event of the search box, which is an input search element. We will start searching when the user presses enter. We cycle through all records in the employees array and check if any field in the data objects contains the typed string. For that to work, we need to convert the index, which is integer, to string. When a match is found, we add the row and the column of the matched text into the result array. Note that we add an object. This way we can fully identify the cells. When the search is done, we change the content of the span to show the number of matches found. When the user starts typing again, we clear the text rendered inside the span. Now if we refresh the page and try to search the grid, we should be able to see the number of search results. Here it is. It looks great. Now let's make the navigation buttons cycle through the search results. We handle the click event for the next button. When the image is clicked, we take the first element from the search results array. When we focus the cell defined by the row and column of this result object, we increase the index. Once we've reached the end of the search results, we reset the index to 0. Let's try our search. It works well. The code for the previous button is the same, with the only difference that the index decreases with each button click. When the index is negative, we set it to the last search result rather than the first one. Now if we check our application, both buttons work. We use the focus cell method to move the caret into the cell that contains the search result. This automatically makes it editable. And with this, our tutorial is finished. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your interest in MindFusion Developer Tools.